Greetings and hellos and welcomes and what have you not, all you amazing people out there. We are looking at computers. I don't know how, computing and computers from the late 80s to 2000. I'm going to talk about why computing and technology kind of peaked in, let's say, 1987 to 2000. Why was that happening? A lot of the things that we are doing today is something that either became massively more accessible or even invented in that time span, or became a standard in that time span. The internet, probably the biggest innovation in technology ever, the internet became a thing in the 90s. Yeah, the United States armies and DoD had like things like that around, like intertalkable networks and stuff like that, like before that. But for us consumers, it was the 90s. A lot of the games that we are playing today, the FPS games and strategy games, and a lot of the gaming paradigms got manifested into a standard in the 90s. Computer hardware, the big beige box that we have, or the big box that we have right now with all the LEDs in, kind of mid 80s and up to the 2000s was when that became a standard. You know, the form factor of our motherboards was in that time period. Laptops started to become a thing. Windows 95, that was like this here. I clicked you. This here was how 99% or whatever percentile it was of people back then was using computers. And then we got Windows 95. That is still, this paradigm here is still what everyone else is trying to mimic. Even fucking Mac OS is doing it. They just switch things a little bit around. If you look at KDE, XFCE, Debian, Cinnamon, blah, 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 they are all following a standard or a trend or something that got set in the 90s. I wish you people could have lived and be cognitive about what was happening in the 90s. So probably be a teenager or something like that, not like a toddler. Like it was like, the 90s was like every week every time you woke up, there would be some like e-commerce started in the 90s. The big boom, and then the big burst was in the 90s. Online shopping, like almost anything we do today online got tested and tried and then failed in the 90s and then got picked up later in the 2000s when people had more experience, more protection, because there was a lot of shady fucking people on the internet back then. I'm not going to lie. It was like, if you think the internet is like a wild west today, like in the 90s, you could run around and fucking sell, illegal substances on the internet and nobody could do a shit about it because they don't know how to do it. For all of the privacies that you're doing today, back in the 90s, it was in the open, bitch. We were running around and sharing physical copies like floppy disk and DVD or CDs with each other with blatantly obvious pirated shit on it. Nobody really did anything about it because they didn't know how to do it. All of that was in the 90s. The 90s set the tone for how most modern systems and technologies are doing today. We even have like AI back then. AI is nothing new. The technology and the know-how and the experience was just not there as it is today, but AI is nothing new. The text recognition and which is like really basic AI machine learning, they did that I think in the 60s or something like that. They experimented with that. We had like, if you were like an operating system nerd like I am, we had FreeBSD, Windows, OS2, BOS, SkyOS, some more I can't fucking remember, and all of them, at least like BOS, OS2, Windows, and FreeBSD, they were all viable systems. It's not like today where Microsoft is sitting on 60-70% of the market. No. Microsoft in the 90s and OS2 and OS2 Warp and all those things, they were competing with each other. Some always said that, OS2 is a better Windows than Windows. BOS was starting to outcompete or competing for slots on computer laptops manufacturers' brains. They were starting to, there was a lawsuit about it where Microsoft basically lost from doing monopoly shit, so BOS couldn't be installed on manufacturers' laptops because they were afraid of losing their growing market. There was so much competition. Heck, I forgot Mac OS and Apple. I forgot them in the 90s. They were like in a really bad spot in the 90s, but they were still competing. Like almost every fucking week there was something groundbreakingly new going on in the computing world in the 90s. It's probably like, a lot of music freaks and music people, they say like 80s was like the peak of music production and music innovation and stuff like that. I have a feeling that between, let's just say 85 to 2005, but mostly in the 90s. That's what historians is going to say about that period for computing. Why is that? Well, we have the Commodores, we have the Amigas, we have the Ataris and all that fucking shit. What happened in the late 80s and 90s was that hardware, like this here, you see here, became accessible to the masses. Before that, we kind of only had gaming consoles for the, the gamer pros out there. And if you wanted to learn to code and stuff like that, you could basically only do that for the most part, either at work or at your university, and then you sneaked into like the computer science lab, and you sat in front of a terminal and did like really simple calculations and stuff like that. But in the late 80s and 90s, people could get a food-prone computer for kind of cheap in their house. And that's why you see, like a lot of the big companies nowadays, computing companies, and mostly, not mostly, but at least gaming companies, they started in the late 80s, 90s, because it became so much more accessible to get their computers. And the Steve Jobs and the Bill Gates paved the way for people that did software solutions and stuff like that in the 90s, because the Apple products was kind of okay, fleshed out. Windows products, like we have Windows 95, before that we have Windows 3.11, this is OS2 Warp, the operating system was kind of figured out a little bit in the 90s, like what to do, what not to do, how to serve it to people and stuff like that. And that meant that not only could you get like somewhat affordable computers, or at least computers was reachable for the masses. They didn't have to fight with terminals and DOS prompts and terminal prompts. They had like a somewhat user-friendly, intuitive systems they could work with that took away a lot of the complexities and setting up they had to do to get to code, to get to learn, to get to be creative. Which is something I keep saying to Linux people, is that nobody gives a fuck about how customizable it is. Nobody really gives a fuck about that you can be the god of the universe in ours about what exact fucking system or software that you're installing on your install. Nobody really cares about that. What people cares about the most is how fast from I plug in my computer and I press the start button can I get to do my accounting, my creativity shit, my development shit, my gaming shit. Most people don't want to be system administrators. Some of us do. You and me, we want to. Most people don't. They want to press a button and they don't want to mess with the operating system at fucking all. We still did that a lot in the not 80s, but definitely in the 80s. We still did it somewhat a lot in the 90s, but not as much as we did like or people did the decades before. And that is what the 90s kind of gave people, was like Windows, BOS, Apple, IBM, all of those that make desktop environments has kind of found that out, that most people didn't want to being a system administrator for their computer. They want to use it. And that was all figured out or ironed in the 90s. That said, there were a lot of problems. They were, of course, I'm not saying that Windows 95 is more user-friendly than Windows 10 or 11 or any Linux distribution nowadays. Like, if you try and use Linux from the mid-90s and Linux today, you want to fucking jump in a lava pit in Minecraft using a 90s Linux distribution versus today. It's like, Linux today is like Microsoft Windows or Apple Mac OS. It's really streamlined. It's really fucking easy. I don't care what you say, it is. I live this fucking shit. Back then, man, you had to fucking hard code your graphic card to work. You have to hard code your fucking hard drives to be attached to your system. Everything you did in Linux, you hard coded more or less via config files and whatnot. But anyway, that's kind of like a side point here. The 90s was kind of the golden age for computing. There were so many startups. There was like, another thing, if you're into development, a lot of the development philosophies like Agile and stuff like that either manifested as an idea or became somewhat as a manifesto and then later on become a standard in the 90s. A lot of the way that we are doing system administration, development, project management, resource management, all of that fucking shit are things that are building on top of things that got either thought about or invented in the 90s. It's really weird. It's really strange that, well, it's not really strange because, like I said before, the 90s allowed more people to access, a computing device. But I think we tend to take it for granted. I think we tend to forget about it. And that's fine, because not everyone was living in the 90s or was a teenager in the 90s or was a young adult or an adult in the 90s, We're not all like 99 years old. Like what I really find interesting is that people love, like, this is what I see when I talk to like teenagers nowadays or young adults that's really into computing. They are really, of course, passionate about what they're talking about, and they're like, oh my god, this is like the newest fucking thing ever and stuff like that. And I have to explain to them, like, when I was like 12 years old, this is when this kind of thing actually was invented. But you're not 12 years old yesterday. No, a lot of the things that we are doing today have its roots back to like the 90s, the 80s, and sometimes the 70s and beyond. But most of it got kind of finalized to some degree in the 90s, late 80s. But we don't tell that to people. And I'm like, if you are so interested in computing and stuff like that, just like in life, you can learn a lot by history. I used to hate history. I'm not joking, I hated history. Why the fuck do I need to know what happened 150s, 200,000 years ago? Until someone explained it to me and said, like, you do know that history is the biggest predictor of the future. And it's the same with computing. What did I say happened in the 90s? People got more accessible. Oh, that's actually a nice Macintosh. Computing devices became more accessible to people. That's why they exploded, and more people got interested in it, and we got this big massive IT boom in the 90s. When has that last happened? Well, we can look at the iPhone. The iPhone was not the first smartphone. It was the first usable, intuitive, and price-friendly smartphone. That exploded the whole smartphone market. What about the tablet market? The same thing. It's not the first tablet ever made. People are making tablets in the 90s, like the Norton from Apple and stuff like that, but Apple made the first usable, price-friendly-ish tablet that got it into the hands of more people, and then the tablet market exploded. Look at it today. The M-series chipset. We had ARMs in the 80s and 90s. Look at the Acorn computers and stuff like that. This is actually what ARM is like. What is it? Like Acorn something? What's ARM stands for? Acorn, I think A is like the Acorn. I can't remember the two rest, but I think the ARM technologies, the RISC computers or chips that we're using right now is based on the from Acorn, like a British company, if I'm not mistaken. But that's another video. I need to refresh my memory a little bit more about that. And now I got really sidetracked here. Nowadays, everyone wants to do the whole ARM thing because someone took a technology that already was known and prominent, but not massively user-friendly. Someone took the chance of making it consumer accessible, consumer friendly, so more people could get their hands on it, and now everyone wants to do ARM shit. Again, you can learn a lot from history. What to do in the future, basically. Like, look at what to do in the future. Because a lot of the things in computing, in anything in life, we are not the only one coming up with it. We may be the only one doing it, let's say, in a YouTube format, but we are not the only one that's thought about or have tried to make approachable tech content, for example. They tried that in the 90s with like the computing canonical or something like that. Later back then you could get it like, basically what YouTube is today. Like, what is YouTube today? It's easily accessible content. They did that back in the day with like VHS tape. You signed up for a subscription, that's like subscribing. And then you got sent the content that you wanted, and you were not relied on, flipping through TV channels and watching a lot of shit you didn't want to watch. You got a VHS every month or something like that with content that you actually wanted to watch. And the 90s was kind of like the big beta version of everything that we see today. There are a lot of people throwing shit all over the walls to see what was sticking and not sticking. The whole e-commerce and, buying shit online and the whole internet in the 90s was one big beta version. Because like the internet like exploded in the 90s. Then we had like the internet bubble, and then the online shopping, groceries on demand. All of that was done in the 90s. But there was no regulation. A lot of people, they fucking, took extra money and scammed everyone about it. And then like in the early 2000s, people were learning from the mistake of the 90s. More regulations, the lawmakers was keeping up, privacy became more difficult, intellectual properties protection was refined and morphed in and looked at a little bit more. Consumer protection, if you were buying online, became a massive thing and stuff like that. And then it exploded again. We're kind of living in the second internet bubble. It's just been lasting for over a decade now. And why is it this long? Why is the internet not imploded? Because, like I said, the 90s was one big beta fest. It was like a decade or more. It went a little bit into the 2000s with the internet thing. But I'm not joking. I was in school when the internet bubble burst, and everyone was saying this is the death of the internet. We have tried it, didn't work. We can't get it to work. And for a few years, the internet was more or less just basically Wikipedia. You know, either people that wanted free shit used the internet, or people on, you know, learning institutes. So, you know, we were looking up information and researching papers and stuff like that on the internet. You may played a little bit of like some flash games here and there and stuff, but the internet back then was mostly being done for either learning or stealing. When the bubble bursted. When the bubble bursted. Then companies started to slowly doing it the right way. We started slowly to get, you know, YouTube in the mid-2000s, social media, you know, with MySpace and stuff that started to creep up a little bit. More and more people was like, now, okay, well, we can sell stuff here, and we have now we have these technologies that can help protect the customers, so they don't have to be afraid of getting their credit card numbers misused or money withdrawn without them knowing it and all that stuff. So we can now start to sell again online, and we can say like, hey, you don't have to be afraid of buying from us anymore, because we have this like stamp that says that we're being monitored, validated, etc., by the governments of where they live. And people got more and more open to do it. And, you know, there was a lot of people like for a long time like, don't buy anything on the internet, they're going to scam you. That was like what people said for close to fucking 5-10 years. But then you slowly heard more and more people say, I actually have a good experience. It's actually really fast. Nothing really happened. You know, like, it's okay. And nowadays, we buy everything. Like, you probably have bought more shit on the internet than you do in a physical store. Just this week. How and why is that done that way now? Because we all learned from the lessons and the big beta fest that was the internet of the 90s. That goes for development practices. That goes from building hardware, computers, developing, I said that already, you know, like gaming, like Blizzard. A lot of the fucking big games companies you see today started in the 90s or early 2000s, because that was, like you said, it was the big, massive beta test for IT, computing, development. There was so much innovation going on, it's not even funny. It moved so fast. Like, I'm not joking. If you bought a computer in the 90s, when you came home and you've unpacked it, it was already obsolete. You almost had to buy a new graphic card every fucking month, or at least every year, to be able to play the latest game. Imagine that. You probably had to upgrade your CPU every 6 months or every year to play and run the latest software. That was how fast things evolved in the 90s. Ever since 2000 up till the M1 chips came out from Apple, you could, like, still to this day, I can run a computer from 2010, I can still browse the web, I can still do online banking. If I'm not doing massively intensive tasks, it will be fine. You know, I can still run Linux from 2015 on a 4GB system, or Windows from Windows 10 on a 4GB system, and do most of my daily shit today. Yes, it will be slow and sluggish, but I can do it. If you like ran a computer in 1995 that was from 1990 or the 80s, you were like shit out of luck. You could barely fucking run Pac-Man on it or the terminal on it. The longevity that you see with your graphic cards, your motherboards, your CPUs, your RAM, back then you were constantly updating all the fucking time. And we're not talking yearly, sometimes month. But if you could stretch it to a year, you were fucking lucky. But that also means you see a lot of new shit. You see a lot of innovation going on. How long does it take right now for them to develop a new graphic card technology, a new RAM technology? A long ass time. A new, like the motherboard form factor and technology has kind of been innovated since, well, the 90s, early 2000s, or maybe even before that. It's funny to think about. Well, I actually kind of miss it a little bit now thinking about it. I miss that every week, 10, 15, 100 companies had something new and groundbreaking to talk about. Imagine when AI, like last year, when everyone talked about AI, imagine that it was not just AI and this happened every fucking week. It was like 10, 15, 20 different technologies they were talking about, to the same degree as people talking about AI. And that was like maybe not every week, but at least every month. You had like 4, 5, 6, sometimes 10 plus companies releasing massively new technologies, and everyone was hyped up, and it was just like, it was a non-stop frenzy of new and exciting things being done. Barely happens anymore. Apple don't innovate as much as they used to. We got the M series now, the Vision Pro, and that's kind of it. Last time they did anything innovative, it was like the iPad and iPhone. Windows haven't innovated since 1995 with Windows 95. Oh well, they did the Xbox. What we have innovated in the computing space the last 15 years, they did that in a month in the 90s. Think about that. Everything that's happened the last 15 years, would happen sometimes within a month or over, let's just say, a year in the 90s. That's how fast it was. I kind of miss it a little bit. See you all later. Bye-bye.